You're listening to RTL SA.
Now, Praline Hudson is a South African-born author and teacher who now resides in Barcelona, Spain, joining us live all the way from Europe today. Praline, thank you so much for making the time and joining us this morning on a South African platform, your homeland.
Thank you so much, Noel. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, Praline, you've been out of the country for quite a while, since 94, I believe. So you've missed most of the fun and games that have happened in this country in the last 18, 20 odd years. But I'm pretty sure that you keep an eye on what's happening in your homeland.
Definitely I do. Yeah, I left in 1994, 28 years ago now. But yeah, definitely. South Africa is still home for me. So I do keep abreast of all the news. And okay, I do pray for our country as well.
So I've got to ask you this question because you have never experienced load shedding. I'm sure you've heard a lot about it, but you've never experienced it. What are your thoughts from where you sit on the energy crisis in this country at the moment?
Well, I mean, Noel, there's an energy crisis worldwide with what's happening around the corner from us. But I think what's happening in South Africa is just maybe a lack of a forecast. You know, I think that perhaps in our case in South Africa, we haven't done our homework to make sure that what is happening now doesn't happen, because people can't be having a great time with load shedding. I mean, I know that. Well, I don't want to go too much into it, but I don't think it's good for the country's economy. I don't think it's good for the people's well-being, what is happening, and to be honest with you, I don't know what where we're going to from here, you know, because for each society to function, we do need energy, and for people to be without that for so many hours every day, because I know it is a big thing now. It's actually going from bad to worse, right? And that is what is concerning.
You say you don't know where to from here. I think pretty much nobody in South Africa knows either, especially our government. They also don't know where to from here. Just have no answers. No money, no infrastructure. It's just absolutely chaotic. But enough about that. I'm so tired of talking about load shedding. It is what it is. We've just got to carry on with life and try to get through the best that we possibly can. Why?
Yeah, I'm just happy that we were able to be here now, because I was worried. I was thinking, I wonder what's going to happen. Are we going to have load shedding? What's going to happen?
No,
it's cool.
It happens so often. I'll tell you, I've had to cancel a few interviews because of it. Well, either they can't connect or I'm off air, or it's chaos. But very glad to have you on the show. Why did you leave the country? What was your thinking? 1994. Obviously, you just finished studying and whatever. No, you did your studies overseas.
It was just love. Nothing more romantic than love. So yeah, I'd spent 2 years in London doing a Montessori diploma, and so I met a Spanish guy there, and that's why I ended up coming to Barcelona, because he was from Barcelona, and that's what happened. So now my family's here. I've got 3 daughters, and my life is here, and that's why. You know, I mean, 1 year to 2 years to 5 years ended up being 28 years.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
that was the main reason.
Now, being a Durban girl yourself, was it a massive adaptation to get used to Spain? I mean, it's totally different language, culture. It's very different to what you would have been used to growing up.
Definitely, it's different, but it's not very different to South Africa, no. In terms of people, what happened is that I went to Chile before I went to London, and before I studied, I went to university. I went to Chile for a year as an exchange student. I was lucky enough to be awarded a mini scholarship to go and study in Chile for a year. So I learned Spanish there. That was a huge adaptation, a journey, because I had no Spanish at all, and that was like really dropping me in the deep end. So when I got to Spain, I had the Spanish, and the Spanish people are very much like the South Africans. They are warm, they are communicative, they're hospitable. So it wasn't a huge challenge to adapt. But I think that South Africans on the whole, and we know that because we are all over the planet, we are very, very resilient. And we've been all over. Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, the US, the UK. We really are a population of migrators. So I think the minute the language was overcome, the rest was really easy.
I want to ask you this question, talking about the language, because there's a great debate, particularly amongst, I'd say, young parents or people that are getting into the world and thinking about their children. And a lot of people think that children should learn an international language. And there's always a debate that rages between French and Spanish. What are your thoughts? Which one do you think is the better or more globally universal language for children to learn?
Yeah. I work in international schools, so language and that globalization and how language really opens doors for everybody, and especially with children, because it's so easy for them to learn a language, right? So why not invest in them by giving them languages? So what's happened? I know your question is about English, about French and Spanish, but let me give you something that we can so relate to, which is English, right? English is so widespread. Everybody wants to learn English. Here in Spain, language is not a thing really, but now there's a huge hype for everybody to learn English. Why? Because yes, a lot of people in the world speak English, but English is one of those languages that is going to get many doors open to you, because it's a rich language. The US speaks English. The UK speaks English. These are world powers. So that is why English gives you such a lot, opens so many of those doors. Because what do we want for our children? For them to get great jobs, to great businesses, for them to be able to function in the world on a global scale and financially as well, right? So English gets you that. Between Spanish and French, you have the same occurrence, because many people speak both languages. You know that French we speak on the African continent, we speak in the Caribbean, we speak in Europe. So it's a widespread language, right? And it's also economically, financially, France is up there with the big guys, so to speak, right? Spanish, you have more people speaking Spanish, but what is the situation with Spanish? They're speaking in South America, and South America we know is still developing, so there it doesn't have as much clout, let's say, as French does. So in a very, having given you a little bit of background as to why I'm going to give you the answer, I think both of them have value, you know. So as long as people are learning a language, children are learning a language, that is excellent for them. It's not only going to open the doors for them, but the minute you learn a language, a second language, as a child, any other language is going to be easy for you to learn. You know, so be it Spanish, be it French, it's going to be great for you, but then anything else is going to be easier for you to learn. So if you learn French, it's going to be very easy for you to learn Spanish, to learn Portuguese, to learn Italian, because they're all part of the Latin languages, right? Yes. So yeah, I mean, I take a long time to give my answer.
That's perfect. You answered it perfectly. But I think the message you drove home there is, have a good second language, be it French or Spanish or whatever it is, but focus on English, because English is actually the global language that people are snapping onto.
Absolutely.
We're going to talk about your book in just a little bit. But I want to ask you, growing up in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, and obviously you never knew that you were going to land up in Spain. Did you always have a passion for teaching? Is teaching what you wanted to do?
Yes, definitely. You know, Noel, I had an amazing time at school. I had my best part of my life was going to school. So I suppose that as well. I think that us teachers, the ones who are really vocational as well about it, we love school and we don't mind going back. And I think that goes with anything. You know, I think the first thing is to love what you do, and that is why for children as well, we've got to give them as many experiences so that they can find their passion. You know. And then if you live that passion, life is so easy. I really think I come to school every day and it doesn't feel like work for me at all. So yeah, since very young, I knew that I would like to go back to school, and I love what I do. I really love what I do.
You never worked in the education department post '94 in South Africa, but obviously I'm sure that you've got a couple of friends and whatever in South Africa that are involved in the education department. How do you think the education in South Africa differs from the education in Spain, for example?
Noel, we really put our mark on the map, because I've gone back, and like you said, I've got friends who are working in South Africa now, and there are amazing schools. There really are schools that are firing children up in order to learn, which I think is what we want. That children must be interested in learning, because then it can be that lifelong journey. That's what we want, you to be a lifelong learner. And there are schools who are doing that. But the reality is that there are schools that aren't, because they just don't have the resources. We started off the conversation talking about load shedding, and it's just a lack of resources. And that's why I mentioned the forecast, because we knew from pre-94 that we would be in trouble, because we had some other African brothers and sisters who went through the similar thing to South Africa. But for some reason, it seems like nobody forecast was coming. So maybe we just decided, listen, let's just spend everything, and tomorrow will deal with itself. And we are noticing now that tomorrow is not dealing with itself, because there are many schools in South Africa who are not up to scratch, and that is our future. We need to be investing in our children. The minute we don't invest in education, really the question is where to from here. And load shedding then is nothing, because if we don't have educated children, adequately educated, not just put them into school and let them waste their minutes and days away, because then you're not going to create passion. You need for those children, you need to create passion in school. So yes, I think that we all have amazing schools, because I think we have amazing people in South Africa with amazing vision. But then the rest of the schools are not doing that well, because they don't have resources. Not because the people who are running those schools are not capable. It's because their hands are tied, because they don't have resources.
Yeah. On that note as well, we definitely have a problem in South Africa with not enough teachers, and we've had a brain drain of professionals all across the board, but we've lost a lot of teachers who are sought after in the rest of the world. What do you think makes teaching in the rest of the world, aside from money, what do you think? Sorry, I just lost my microphone there for a second. What do you think makes teaching in the rest of the world so attractive, aside from money, rather than staying in South Africa and nurturing and harnessing our youth here in this country?
In one word, Noel, resources. When you go into teaching, there's a huge part which is vocational. You want to see your students thrive. You want to see that you are making a mark on those students. But you need resources for that. Because there comes a time when all that you're giving in terms of nurturing them and just being yourself and helping them and creating that passion for what you're teaching. But if you don't have the resources in order to make that journey a pleasure for you and those students, you get burnt out. So you go elsewhere where they have resources, and money, like you say, money is important because we need it to live. But your day-to-day, what makes you really go back into that classroom and give of yourself, is if you have the resources and you can see that your children are benefiting from you being there with them. And perhaps that's what it is in South Africa. That's why we really be losing so much of our talent, because our teachers are amazing. They really are.
Well, I think I'm going to set up a Zoom meeting between you and the Minister of Education. I think you guys need to talk.
I would. So, that would be great, because I think that everybody, we need to connect as people. It doesn't matter whether you're minister, whether you're president, whether you're the Queen of England, it doesn't matter. We need to connect as people, because we, as I tell you, I'm an early years teacher. Those children are our future. If we don't invest in them as human beings,
when you say early years, are you talking foundation phase, ages between like 4 and 8?
That's 3 to 6.
3 to 6. That is the most important years in a child's life.
Those are.
Foundation.
Those inputs go such a long way. That's when they're forming all of those connections that they're going to make later on. So Absolutely. That's so important.
Now that's why.
That's why my book is about. It's for these people.
I was just going to the book now. When did you decide that you wanted to write a book? Is it something that came throughout your career, or was it something that you grew up wanting to do?
Since ages ago. I mean, growing up, I read to my children. It's what we have to do for our children. We've got to tell them stories. If we don't have the books, hey, listen, tell them stories. All cultures were built on storytelling. So books are so important. They need to read in order to go anywhere, whether you're going to university, whether you're going to college, whether you're getting into a job, you need to be able to read. And so we need to nurture that skill, that passion in children from a young age. So I did that with my own girls. And I found that, of course, I mean, there weren't enough books.
Yeah.
Number one, about African people, because look, I'm reading to my children. What is it? My eldest is now 21, so that's like 21 years ago. And even in the classroom, and you're looking for something so that your children, especially here in Spain and in the UK was a bit better, no? But here in Spain, trying to help these children to understand that yes, I look different. I come from a different place. I had a different experience growing up. How do you bring that closer to the children? Through storytelling. And I found a huge problem finding those books set in Africa, about African people, with people with African heritage. And so that's why I thought, you know what, let me see if I can do something about this and put my little grain of sand. And that's where that desire was born. And so during the pandemic, I decided to write this very short story, very short with lots of imagery, so that anybody can read it. It is written in English, but anybody can read because it uses onomatopoeias, which are all about sounds, right? Yeah. Shh and blah, blah, blah. You know, so that children can feel the book. Children need to also learn through their senses. I mean, you're giving them more input in order to receive information. And that's what the book is about. It's a very sensorial book full of images, minimum language, but it really does transform you to Africa, I think, and I've been told. So it's a beautiful experience, because that's what it is. If an experience is beautiful, you want to repeat it, right? Mm. And that is what I'm hoping with this book, that you're going to have an amazing experience reading it, and you're going to want to read more and more and more. And that's where you want to get to.
The book is called Nandi in KwaZulu. Give us a little bit of a synopsis about what is the storyline about?
Well, it's like I said, it's very simple. It's very simple. And it's about what children love doing most. It's what us adults should be doing more of, which is playing. Okay. It's a book that's set in Africa, about life in Africa, but everybody can relate to it, because it's a game that we play all over, whether it's Asia, whether it's the Americas, whether it's Africa, whether it's Europe, we all play that game. Mm. So that is what it is. It's through the game we can unite so many different peoples. And although it's set in Africa, everybody can relate like I say.
I was just going to ask, was the book written specifically for South African children?
No, it's written for everybody. It's written for everybody, and not only children, you know, because at the end of the day, when you're reading to 3 to 5 year old, it's not the child who's going to be reading, it's their parent, right? So through the parents, you know, there's going to be learning for everybody. So no, and definitely not just for South Africans. It's for our South African children, for our dark children, if you like, our black children, to be able to find representation in books. It can be like the same way that we read about Asian children, like we read about European children, we read about Indian children. You know, we can all relate, because we're all at the end of the day people.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to keep children, even if they're not in South Africa, but in touch with their heritage. And we just celebrated Heritage Day this past weekend. Do you guys celebrate Heritage Day there where you are in Spain, or is it more South African thing?
No, we don't. And I suppose you know what the situation now is with heritage as well. You know, it's always been frontiers that are defining a people. Now it's heritage. So heritage is good. It's good to know where you come from. And when we're talking about the languages, children learning languages, whether it's French or Spanish or English, it's great to learn those languages to open doors, but we need to know our own as well. You know, we might have the minority languages, in terms of the world, but we've got Afrikaans, we've got Sotho, we've got Zulu, we've got Xhosa. we need to know those languages, because we need to know where we come from. I mean, myself, I've been away from South Africa for more than 28 years, because I spent 2 years in Chile, 2 years in the UK, a year in Chile. But I know who I am. I'm South African. I'll always go back to that to connect with myself. And that is what language also gives children. So they need to know their language. But then we have, and it's great that we can celebrate Heritage Day in South Africa, because we have a very rich heritage in South Africa. And the fact that we're also a new country, we embrace that, whether it's the Indians, whether it's the Afrikaners, whether it's the Sutus, whether it's the Zulus. We all can define heritage as that little, it's a kind of a multitude of heritages within the one South Africa, the Rainbow Nation, right?
100%, yeah.
I think that when you come outside of South Africa, the heritage is very defined. So you're either English, you're Spanish, you are French. Here in Spain, we have a problem with heritage, because I don't know if you know, but we've got the Basques in the north of Spain. Where we are here now in Barcelona is Catalonia, and these what they call nations are in huge conflict with the rest of Spain, because they don't consider them part of the Spanish heritage.
Oh, wow.
So I think that maybe when you come out of South Africa, because we in South Africa, we are able to embrace our own identity within a wider identity. When you come outside of that, there is a problem with that, and now we're using, instead of the frontiers, well, maybe linked to frontier as well, we are putting ourselves into little islands, which I don't think is great, really. I don't think it's great. And that's why I think we are unique in South Africa, where we are able to embrace each one of us. And it's amazing, because considering where we come from with apartheid, I think that is why it's so sad for me to see things are not that great, like load shedding and the education system.
Praline, you are an incredibly interesting human being, and I wish we had so much more time to discuss things. I'd love to pick your brain about a lot of different things. But this book of yours now is your first book. Are there plans for more in the future?
Yes, you know why now? Because people have requested it as well. I mean, it's lovely. I think it would be great. It's a lovely product. I enjoy doing it. And I will do it, because, like I say, people are very excited about it. People are very motivated by it. Not only my colleagues, but other teachers. It's a great book to use in the classroom, because it's got a lot of meat. It's really got a lot of meat. You can do so many things about geography, about science, about language. There's so many things in a very simple way, because that's all you need with children. Simplicity. You can cover so many different topics. So teachers as well, parents have said, you know what? Oh wow, it would be so nice to have more Nandis.
More Nandis.
So definitely, I would be very happy to do more books, and that's my intention.
Where do people go to get their hands on your book?
Worldwide, it's available on Amazon, and then in South Africa, it's available at Ethnic Kids. I know I should be doing more to promote the book in other bookshops and Noel, but I'm a full-time mother, household, teacher, and so this is my little hobby. So I thought online is the best bet. So Ethnic Kids is a platform for our South Africans. I thought it needs to be widely available in South Africa, so that's the platform I'm using. And Ethnic Kids is spelled ETHNI, like ethnic kids, KIDS.co.za, and then I'm Amazon, of course.
Brilliant. I know that you have to go, because you've got a lot going on that side as well. Thank you so much for making the time to join us this morning, and it was an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and I look forward to chatting to you again in the future with your future projects and things like that.
Noel, it's been a super pleasure speaking to you. You are an interesting person. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you to your listeners for listening me out. And I hope to speak to you.
No, I tell you what, judging by the comments on YouTube, they found you incredibly interesting as well.
Thank you so much, guys. I love you. I love South Africa.
You're listening to RTL SA.